what are the things that we're doing that are aging us faster?
I think so much. I mean, the first thing I'd say is that the purpose of being young forever is not to live a hedonistic life and seek pleasure and just be narcissistic. It's about being able to show up in your life fully, being able to love and serve and do the things that you want to do, to engage in life in a meaningful, purposeful way, to be able to be present in relationships, to show up for your friends and family and community, to be of service. Like Neem Karoli Baba said, love everybody, serve everybody, feed everybody. I think that sort of sums up the book. And I think that there's so many things that we are doing unconsciously that are disrupting our ability to live well and age well and feel good. And there are many cultures around the world, like the blue zones, which I visited, like Sardinia and Icaria, where the defaults are all automatically making them healthy. If all you have to eat is your local wild foods and whole unprocessed foods, you're going to eat that. If you have to hike 5 miles a day up and down rocky terrain to shepherd your goats and sheep, you're going to do that. You're not going to go to the gym, right?
Yeah.
If you have to lift big logs and build things, that's how you're going to stay strong. Their community and their relationships are such an embedded part of their whole culture. So they have these automatic defaults that create health. Everything in our society automatically creates disease. Our processed diet, which we just talked about, our sedentary lifestyles, chronic stress. I was with this guy, Silvio, on top of this mountain in Sardinia, who was a 200 sheep and goat, and his family lived there for 100 years. And we had this beautiful dinner of all his food that he grew and he made and all this sheep cheese, everything. And so I said to him, I said, Silvio, so do you have any stress in your life? And he looked at me like it was the weirdest freaking question he'd ever been asked. And it took him a while. He saw it and he pondered. And then he said, yeah, sometimes at night a goat gets loose and I have to go get it. I'm like, holy cow. So we live in such a chronically stressed life. We're sleep deprived. We're exposed to unnatural light at the wrong times of day. We are exposed to an overload of environmental toxins. We have a horde of drugs we're being given that are destroying our microbiome, antibiotics, and all the things in our food supply that are damaging our guts. So we have literally a disease-producing culture, and we have a society that's focused on individualism and success and achievement. And in Sardinia and Korea, where I was, people weren't like on this big goal to achieve something. They were just living. They were just enjoying life. They were celebrating together. They were savoring the sweet things in life. They were just enjoying being as enough. And I think so much of our culture is about doing and making and creating, which is not bad. I do it, but I think it can come at a cost if we are unbalanced in how we do it.
And explain how does food act as medicine? I mean, it sounds good, Dr. Hyman, but how does it actually work? Okay, so here's what happens. As we age, this is a little complicated story, but it's worth telling. As we age, our immune systems age as well. It's called immunosenescence, the aging of our immune system. And part of that happens because in our bone marrow, we have stem cells. And we have stem cells for white blood cells. Now, if you are eating the typical American diet, and you're exposed to all the crap in our food and the toxins in our environment and all that, these stem cells get injured, literally get mutated, and they produce their progeny, which are their white blood cells. We produce 1 million white blood cells in our bone marrow every minute, 1 million. And then they go out in the periphery and the rest of your body and they do their job, right? When you have these mutated, funky white blood cells, they're called chips, they get in the circulation and they become zombie cells. You might have heard of zombie cells, which create aging. And these zombie cells create cancer and heart disease and inflammation and autoimmune diseases and all kinds of stuff. And they're very hard to get rid of because they just live forever. They're like zombie cells.
How do you get rid of them?
Well, it turns out by some magical twist of nature that the Himalayan tartary buckwheat phytochemicals target and kill the cells that are zombie cells. Wow. So literally, I had an immunorejuvenating pancake dinner last night. I'm so proud of myself. It was the first time I ever had breakfast for dinner. It was so good. I made it with berries, put a little cinnamon in there, which is good for your blood sugar. It's so high in protein. I put an egg in there, macadamia milk. Really simple. No, it wasn't super starchy, and it was delicious. And it was
good.
Rich, almost yellow color to the flour with all the phytochemicals. So that's an example of how food is medicine.
It's your community that matters. It's your social, not your social network online, but your actual social network in person that drives so much of your behavior. And I know I for decades studied the sort of molecular biology and physiology and biochemistry and genetics, and I was sort of deep into like the inner workings of the human body. And Einstein said, "I'm not interested in the thoughts in the element on the spectrum of this or that element. I'm interested in the thoughts of God. The rest are details." So I feel like I was so interested to know the mind of God by understanding the natural laws of biology, which is what functional medicine is. It's what's described in Young Forever. But I had kind of missed something, which is how do we get people to change behavior? Because I can change biology. I can take someone with diabetes and heart failure and all these problems, and I can reverse it. And I went to Haiti after the earthquake in 2010, and I met Paul Farmer, who basically took care of people who were the most underserved people in the world. Haiti is the poorest civilization in the Western Hemisphere. Half of the population lives on less than $1 a day. And these people were basically neglected by the public health community, and they had TB and AIDS. And he said, look, I can cure these diseases with drugs. These are easy. But people don't have the ability to take the drugs, and they don't have clean water, and they don't have a watch to know when to take it. And so he realized that the power was community. So he created this model of accompaniment. We're going to accompany each other to health. And so he used community health workers, essentially. And then I realized that, wow, we call all these chronic illnesses of aging, we call them non-communicable diseases. They're not infectious, but they are contagious. We know that if you're overweight, your family's overweight, it's not as strong a predictor of obesity as if your friends are overweight. If your friends are overweight, you're 171% more likely to be overweight than if your family's overweight.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Which is crazy. This is Christakis' work from Harvard. And so it's our social fabric that determines our behavior. These social threads that connect us are more important than our genetic threads. So if all your friends are, drinking beer and having fries and burgers and watching football, which may not be a bad thing, but you might like that, you might not be as healthy as if all your friends are drinking green juices and going to yoga every day, right? So it's a very different framework. So I realized that the power of community is so important. So we did a program at this church, Saddleback Church in California, where we used the small groups that they already had built, and we put a healthy curriculum, living curriculum through those groups. And we thought a few hundred people would show up. 15,000 people signed up the first week, and they accompanied other health, and they lost 250,000 pounds in the first year. And through this process, I really learned that it was the power of each other to help each other get healthier, to lift each other up, to inspire each other, to hold each other accountable. It's like AA or it's like Weight Watchers. These things work because they have a community connected component. And that was one of the things I learned from the Blue Zones, Jay, that was so important. There was no nursing homes. Their whole society was built around relationships and community and connection and celebration together. So people weren't isolated and lonely and disconnected like they are in the society, but they were deeply connected. The Sangha, right, is like, the Sangha is one of the 3 pillars of enlightenment, which is community that helps you build and work towards the right action and the right life and the right kind of loving and the right behavior, all these things. So I think we really underestimate the power of that. So what I would say to people is, find someone, a friend, a buddy, a group. My friend Rick Warren, the pastor of Saddleback Church, said, every body needs a buddy.
When I changed my diet, I became a completely different person. I realized it was what I was eating. And now I'm so thankful for having my life back.
So you think our diet also determines our behavior?
Absolutely. There's clear evidence about that. I was just reading a study the other day that showed that people who eat a lot of carbohydrates and sugars and starches have much more violent behavior. We know that people eat refined oils, which we now have 10% of these as our calories from soybean oil. It's in everything. It's not necessarily we put it in our food. It's in every packaged processed food. That has led to increase in homicides and violence and suicides around the world. And we've gotten higher on these refined omega-6s and low on omega-3s. So the evidence of how it affects behavior, mood, poverty, it keeps poor communities down. And then the food industry targets these communities disproportionately. So you have all these things happening at the same time. And then kids can't learn in school because they're eating Doritos and Coke, and they can't actually focus and learn, and their behavior's all erratic, and they're on these chemicals which alter their behavior. That's why 1 out of 6 kids has some neurodevelopmental problem, which is enormous, right? ADD now affects 1 out of 10 kids. I think 14% of kids have ADD, and about 1 in 10 kids are on medication. It's a body problem, and the body problem is caused by our diet and by environmental toxins. And I've had hundreds of ADD patients who've transformed their lives. I mean, I just, we were talking about the Broken Brain documentary series I did. I had a guy, I was in a New York Russian bathhouse the other day, and this guy comes in, I saw your series, I've been on ADD medication my whole life, and it helped me get off my medication. I mean, we see this. So you've got health, you've got the economy, you've got social justice and poverty issues, you've got climate, you've got environment, you've got education. It's all connected. And the issue is that most people don't connect the dots, number one, and most people don't realize that we're in this situation because of money in the food system that's driving our policies.
The thing that I think is driving so many of our economic and social ills is our food system. And if I had a magic wand, I would put in I'm working actually on a petition right now. I've got 150,000 people on our Fat Summit, which is an online summit and we interview over 30 experts on fat. And it's available. Anybody can go to fatsummit.com and get to see this. Yeah. And to kind of list what are the policies that would really radically change things, not just in America, but around the world if we became the beacon for this. And I met with the Surgeon General a couple of days ago, and he asked me to come to Washington to help change and shape this policy. So the things that matter are, ending ending agricultural subsidies for commodity products like corn, soy, and wheat that go into all our processed industrial food. Subsidizing fruits and vegetables and things that actually promote health. Yeah. Ending food marketing to kids. Right, we market junk food to kids. I think we're one of only 50 countries that we are one of the only countries that doesn't do this. 50 countries control food marketing to kids. Really, regulated. Yeah, us and Syria are the only ones. I think. Oh my gosh. I would end all use of antibiotics in animal feed except in animal husbandry, except for treatment of disease. Full stop. I would have clear food labeling so that people know what they're eating. Is it good for you? Green. Is it maybe a little tricky? We'll eat with caution. Yellow. Is it bad for you? It might kill you. Red. Stop. Simple.
Like when you have cigarettes now, there's this will cause cancer. This will kill you.
And this is controversial, but I would put a tax on junk food and soda, which has been proven to work and reduce consumption. This was just done in Mexico. It was super effective. Done in Berkeley, first place in America. Very effective.
Interesting.
It's like cigarettes. Yeah. Tax cigarettes. If a Coke was actually $10, I would actually make things cost what they really cost. The only reason a McDonald's meal is so cheap is because the government pays for it and subsidizes it. Really? I met with the vice chair of Pepsi. He said, "Why are you using high fructose corn syrup in your soda?" He says, "Because, Mark, the government makes it so cheap for us by subsidizing agriculture and the growing of corn that's turned into high fructose corn syrup. That's why we're using it. It's good business. I wouldn't use it if the government didn't make it so cheap." So I would end subsidies. Oh my gosh. I would end any food that wasn't promoting health in any federally funded program. Food stamps. You can buy $4 billion now of food stamps are spent on soda for the poor. $4 billion. It's the biggest single amount of item that's bought. Yeah, soda. Yeah. You can buy a 2-liter bottle of soda, but you can't buy a rotisserie chicken. You can't buy with food stamps online because of some stupid regulation. We're trying to change that. Wow. So I would implement a whole series of policies like this. I would also make sure that we really promote science and nutrition in school, so kids know very early on what's going on. There should be no food that doesn't promote health in schools. We know that there's clear evidence that kids who are fed poor foods, and I'm not talking about like school lunches that are quote healthy, right? I mean, pizza is considered a vegetable.
Pizza,
right? Pizza's a vegetable. According to Congress, pizza's a vegetable.
Oh my gosh, that's all I ate every day.
Yeah. And so we need just really clear policies that we could change all this in America. And I think people are ready for it. People want it. People know the issue is here. We need to end in the kinds of industrial agriculture we're doing that are actually promoting degradation of the environment. And we need to label GMOs because the centralization of seed production has caused huge problems. Glyphosate is now Roundup is used on soybeans. 98% of soybeans are Monsanto soybeans. And
98%?
I think it's something like 98% of world.
Gosh.
So the centralization of seed production, and then it's made, even if you debate GMOs are good or bad, they're using all this pesticides and herbicides because of these that are actually now getting into the water. Now we know that glyphosate now, according to the World Health Organization and an International Board of Scientists, is a cancer-causing agent. I'm excited because in my practice, I'm going to start doing glyphosate testing for see people because people don't know what they're consuming. So I would do a series of things that would really, if I had all the money in the world, to really change this. Wow. Michael Bloomberg, he sort of tried to do this. He had all the money in the world, and he made huge policy changes in New York. He got rid of trans fats. He changed all kinds of food laws. He actually started to try to regulate soda, but the food industry came down so hard on him.
So much money they had to,
yeah.
If you had to just put together an all-weather eating strategy, what would the ideal, in air quotes, diet
I wrote about it. I wrote a whole book about it. It's called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And it's about these principles, I call them the Pegan principles, and it's really focused on quality first, right? Nobody thinks we should be adding additives and hormones and antibiotics and pesticides and glyphosate to our food. Like, it's in it, but nobody's like, yeah.
How do we avoid it at the grocery store?
If you look at the label of something, if it has something you can't recognize, pronounce, then you shouldn't have it. Or if you don't have it in your cupboard at home, like butylated hydroxytoluene, which is in almost every processed food, is BHT. It's illegal in Europe. You wouldn't sprinkle that on your salad, would you? No. So that's a good rule. The second principle is, we should be eating a plant-rich diet, and across the spectrum, from fruits and vegetables to...
Do you treat fruits and vegetables as sort of one and the same, or?
No, it should be vegetables and fruit, right? So it's like, you don't want to be consuming only fruit, because that's full of sugar, and if you're diabetic or you're overweight or have issues, you might want to cut back on the sugary fruits or eat berries, which are less glycemic. Lots of nuts and seeds. Everybody agrees we should be eating lots of nuts and seeds. You want to soak them, reduce the lectins, that's fine. If you're going to eat beans and grains, pick low starch ones, right? And also...
Give us a few examples.
So like black rice, which is like the blueberries of rice. Quinoa.
What does that mean?
Well, the black rice is called the emperor's rice or forbidden rice. And it's full of these it's black. So anytime you see color in nature, there are polyphenols and phytochemicals in there. So it's got more antioxidants per serving than blueberries. And then you want to make sure, if you're eating, grains, like gluten grains are interesting. So most of the gluten we eat is wheat. It's 133 pounds per person per year. That's a pharmacologic dose. It is worse for your blood sugar than table sugar.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yes. When you look at the glycemic index, which is how much the fixed amount of the food will raise your blood sugar, table sugar is 80, bread is 100.
Whoa, I had no idea. Why?
Because it's so processed and so quickly absorbed. And if you want to eat, if you're not gluten sensitive, you want to have farro or einkorn wheat or, spelt, you might tolerate those because those aren't highly altered genetically. But the wheat we eat is super starchy, has a lot more gliadin proteins, create more gluten sensitivity, is sprayed with glyphosate at harvest to defoliate the plants, and it also has preservative called calcium propionate, which causes autism in animal models and is shown to cause behavioral problems in kids. So ADD, all that stuff could be all the flour. So I'm not a big flour person, plus it's just like sugar. So if you want to have other grains, if you're not gluten sensitive, like rye or barley, that's fine. And then beans, again, lima beans, kidney beans. Look, 75% of Americans are overweight. So most people should be eating a lot of starch. And that, you have to eat 3 cups of beans to get the equivalent of like 4-6 ounces of protein. So I have this lentils and things like that, which are lower starch beans, the zucchini beans, other kinds of beans. I talk about them in my book. And then if you're eating animal products, you want to eat animal products that are not going to hurt the animals, not going to hurt you, and not going to hurt the environment, right? So for beef, it should be regeneratively raised, ideally, which is hard to find, but you can actually get more and more of that around, and there's ways to do it by looking online to get it. Thrive Market is a great resource for regeneratively raised beef. And again, chicken should be pasture raised, pork and all that should be raised in ways that are more organic or sustainable. Fish, you want to eat fish that's sustainably harvested or sustainably organically aquacultured, because we over harvest the fish, and then we don't want to eat big fish that's like full of mercury and tuna and swordfish.
Just because they've lived longer?
Well, what happens is the coal and all the fossil fuels go in the ocean, go into the algae, get stored in the algae. The little fish eat the algae, then the bigger fish eat the little fish, and it goes on up the food chain. And when you got a swordfish or a tuna, these are monster fish, and they bioaccumulated all this. And so you want to eat the right animal products. You want to eat the right grains, the right beans, the right vegetables, the right fruits, the right nuts.
Give me the right vegetables. Are we just looking for color spectrum?
So non-starchy vegetables. If you want to cut out nightshades and get rid of the lectins, that's fine. I don't care. But I love tomatoes. So I'm not going to do that. And they don't make me feel bad. So there's no point in restricting your diet necessarily if you're not sick.